What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube with another edition today of Tales from the Ford, where I review classic movies and tell you guys whether they're worth watching or worth skipping altogether. Today I am reviewing doll horror. You guys that know my channel for any length of time know that I love a good doll horror subgenre, going back to Twilight Zone back in the 50s with the doll episode. Was a great one. Of course, we have Child's Play, which is the pinnacle of doll horror. We have Stuart Gordon's dolls, Puppet Master. We have Tourist Trap had great dolls in it. We had a bunch of classic doll movies over the years. Most recently, The Boy has been, I think, a pretty good one. That one is kind of a divided opinion. But there's lots of good and lots of bad doll horror out there. A lot of it's repetitive. So let's go over this 1990 doll classic and see how it is. I'm reviewing today 1991's Dolly, Dearest. Now, this has been considered one of the better doll horror films in the subgenre, and I had never seen it. It's been free up on YouTube for a while now, so I had a chance to watch it for free. It was in the back of my queue for a long time, and I figured, you know what, this is one of the only considered classic doll films that I have never seen before, so I need to check this movie out, and I finally got around to it. Dolly, Dearest from 1991. Is about an hour and a half runtime, and it is written and directed by Maria Elise, starring Denise Crosby, Sam Bottoms, and Candace Hudson. And it is a pretty basic, run-of-the-mill story in terms of the doll horror subgenre. You've heard it 1,000 times before. A family, Sam Bottoms' character is a doll maker. He gets hired over in Mexico to come over and make some classic dolls to get a big promotion, work with a big company, a big doll manufacturing company, and so he goes out there with his family, his son, his daughter, and his wife, and their dog, and I think there's a dog. Maybe it's a cat. I don't know. Some animal. They go out to this nice Mexican home, and they find that there's been a curse. Basically, one of the archaeologists who was digging, looking for things, unearthed this cursed burial ground kind of a thing, where the spirit, I guess, gets into the dolls in the factory, and chaos ensues. So if that sounds like you've heard it before, you probably have. But again, in 1991, it wasn't such a repetitive subgenre as it is today. But all in all, I thought this was pretty solid. I got to start with the acting. Denise Crosby, you know her from Pet Sematary. She was Gage Creed and Ellen Creed's mom, Pet Sematary, the original. Really solid acting in this. Sam Bottoms was good, and the star of our show I thought was pretty solid. I liked Candace Hudson as the little girl who was the one to get kind of sucked in by the doll. All these dolls, as you know, have to latch onto a child to use them to try to get to their families and kind of possess them and get them on their side so they can take over the household, which is what Candace Hudson's character does. And for being a young girl actor, she does a really nice job in this. She has kind of the bad seed thing where she's really sweet to her parents and tries to kind of lull them into a false sense of security. But you can tell that she's kind of has evil intentions once this doll gets in her head. So you can see both the sweet and the precocious and the dangerous sides of her come out through her facial expressions and the tone of her voice, which was well done. A couple times she's trying to convince her mom to do something for her, and you can tell the doll's been talking to her, so you see her mind working on both sides of things. So that was a nice duality play there by Candace Hudson. I've always liked Denise Crosby, even though I thought she was a little bit strange in the Pet Sematary role. I think she played that well, and I think she played this well. She was a good... she played the mom who kind of started seeing things going south early on. She kind of saw a change in her child, and the father didn't want to believe it, as it always happens. The male character resists it, and the female character knows what's going on. And so there's a fight in the family. The brother character I wasn't as big a fan of. This is one of the minuses for the film for me. He plays this kind of curious kid who winds up enjoying the archaeology and kind of joining the diggers and watching what's going on at the digging site next door. And he winds up kind of figuring things out through being the apprentice of the diggers, and why these diggers allow this young child to just come in their job site and go into forbidden territory. I have no idea. He keeps sneaking in. They keep letting him do it for some reason, so that's kind of strange. But he plays it a little over the top. He has some cheesy lines. There's a couple lines during the last scene of the movie that are kind of over the top, so he's written a little bit weird. But I thought that Maria Elise did a nice job here. I don't know any other standout credits that she's had. I think she's only had a couple other credits as a director. But I did enjoy her work in this. It has kind of a bit of a paranormal feel to it with the spirit moving around and stuff like that. Eventually, the spirit of the dolls does bounce kind of from one doll to all the dolls, which is a little strange, but it kind of works in the scenario of this. I like the isolation horror. One by one, the characters get stuck one-on-one with the doll, and as they kind of figure out that there's evil in the house and what the doll is, that's when they start getting picked off. So again, it's pretty standard fare there. Pretty good house. They chose a really nice kind of the Mexican house that these guys kind of move into. It's a pretty nice house. There's a lot of rooms to it. There's a lot of like long hallways and kind of spacious rooms, so they can kind of isolate one-on-one. Creepy basement in the cellar, which is nice. So they chose a good location. The acting is pretty solid. The editing is pretty well done. The gore has its moments. There's not consistent gore, but when you do see some gore, it's decent. Some of the coloring of the blood and the blood splatter patterns are a little strange in this one. It just doesn't seem to match up with how they're being kind of sliced. But I liked in particular some of the creative ways they chose to kill, like putting stuff in pools of water to electrocute people, stuff like that. I think 2 people actually get electrocuted in this, or some version of that. So they at least break it up and don't just have it be knives the entire time, which is nice. All in all, pretty proud of this. Obviously, in doll movies, how they use the doll is the most important thing, and there's good and bad in this scenario. The doll looks pretty good. She's a pretty standard talking Tina kind of doll. Nothing special, but does have a nice menacing look. You can see why the child would like the doll, and you can also see why the people that didn't like the doll would think it was creepy. So good look on the doll and good movements on the doll. They move the doll around without looking like too animatronic like too CGI, too claymation style. Sometimes in these you get straight claymation or straight CGI and it looks like crap. The movements they had were pretty good. They didn't look too over-contrived. Some spots, but mostly it was good. But I thought the one big negative in this was that the doll was overexposed. Now, when I say overexposed, anytime you've got a character that's not played by a human, so anytime there's like a monster, some kind of sea creature, some kind of sci-fi creature, or some kind of a doll that is not being moved by humans, and it's either CGI or, some kind of stop-motion, claymation kind of a thing, you have to show that character as little as possible. The fear in these things, because they seem rather unrealistic for a Chucky or a Godzilla to attack you. So the way you want to keep it scary is keeping the movements creative and sleight. Sleight of hand, sleight of eyes kind of things. In some spots they did that, where they showed the doll just moving its head, or you see its feet. You see that a lot in Child's Play, who does it perfectly. In this movie you see some of those things, some good creative shots, which I liked, but then you also see a lot of over-movement. As the movie goes on, you see the doll fully running in front of the screen. You see it talking and laughing a little bit. You see some over-the-top movements of it, and it starts to look kind of fake. The mystery goes out of the killer when it's a non-human and you can see it too much on screen. Not only is it overexposed, so you take the fear out of it, but also it turns it from a horror into a comedy, because you go, oh, that doll couldn't really do that, or oh, those movements look fake, and it takes you out of the tension of it. When you've got a little doll running around creeping on you, you think it can be realistic in your childhood. You think back to the childhood dolls you had, and it was really scary. But the second you see it on screen and it looks silly and fake and it's making noises, all of a sudden now it makes it into a schlocky comedy kind of thing, which this jumped the shark a little bit in doing. They had a nice backstory to the doll. The backstory is always the second most important part of these doll horror movies, and they had a decent backstory to it. Again, a little basic, but I think for this movie overall, it is a fun little doll movie. It is one that I think you should see. It is considered a classic. I wouldn't put it necessarily in classics with some of the others that I mentioned earlier, but I did quite enjoy it. I thought, in spite of the fact the doll was overexposed, in spite of the fact that the brother character wasn't my favorite, and that some of the stuff was really paint by numbers and basic, I did enjoy the kills. I did enjoy the basic story. Doll horror is fun for me. The acting is good, the doll looks cool, and I think overall it's an easy hour-and-a-half watch for you. So if you like doll horror, you will find things to like about this like I did. So while it's not special, it is certainly one you can put in your collection and bust out if you want to do a doll horror marathon. I give this movie a 6 out of 10 for 1991's Dolly, Dearest. What did you think if you saw it? Tell me in the comments below. And what are some of your favorite doll horror films? Did you like The Boy recently? Are you a big Child's Play, Tourist Trap, Puppet Master? What kind of doll horror do you like the best? Slappy from the Goosebumps films. Tell me who your favorite dolls are and which doll horror you like the best. And I will see you guys next time. Stay scared, my friends.